8-year-old Marcus Williams pressed his face against the cold glass window of the black sedan, watching the grand gates of Buckingham Palace grow larger as they approached. His wheelchair sat folded in the trunk, but for now he was content to observe the world from the car seat, his thin legs covered by a soft blue blanket his grandmother had knitted. "Look at all those people, Marcus," his mother Sarah whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Hundreds of tourists lined the streets, cameras ready, hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Marcus had been dreaming of this moment for months, ever since the Make-A-Wish Foundation had granted his request to meet the Queen's Guard. Marcus had been born with spina bifida, a condition that left his legs paralyzed from birth. Despite countless surgeries and physical therapy sessions, doctors had told his family that he would never walk. But Marcus refused to give up hope. Every night before bed, he would practice moving his legs under the covers, willing them to respond, dreaming of the day he might stand tall like the soldiers he admired so much. The Williams family had traveled from their small town in Yorkshire for this special visit. Marcus's father, David, worked double shifts at the local factory to afford the trip, while Sarah had taken time off from her nursing job at the community hospital. They had saved for nearly 2 years to make this journey possible, knowing how much it meant to their son. As their car pulled through the palace gates, Marcus's eyes grew wide with excitement. The massive stone walls seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky, adorned with flags that fluttered gently in the autumn breeze. Royal guards stood at attention in their iconic red uniforms and tall black hats, their faces serious and focused. "They look just like in the pictures," Marcus breathed, his nose still pressed against the window. His collection of toy soldiers at home paled in comparison to seeing the real thing. These weren't just men in costumes. They were elite soldiers, protectors of the crown, representatives of centuries of British military tradition. The family was greeted by Mrs. Elizabeth Hartwell, a kind palace coordinator who had been working with special needs children for over 15 years. She had silver hair and gentle eyes that immediately put Marcus at ease. She helped transfer him to his wheelchair and began the tour, explaining the history of each room they visited. "The Queen's Guard has a very special job," Mrs. Camgrove Hartwell explained as they moved through the ornate corridors. "They protect not just the royal family, but they also represent the very best of our military forces. Each guard must pass rigorous training and demonstrate exceptional character." Marcus listened intently to every word, occasionally asking questions about the weapons, the uniforms, and the daily routines of the guards. His parents followed behind, capturing every moment on camera, amazed by their son's enthusiasm and knowledge. During the tour, they encountered several off-duty guards who stopped to chat with Marcus. Each interaction filled him with more excitement, but there was one guard who seemed different from the others. Sergeant James Mitchell, a tall man with kind brown eyes, appeared to take special interest in Marcus's questions about military life. Sergeant Mitchell had served in Afghanistan and Iraq before joining the Queen's Guard 2 years earlier. At 32, he had seen enough of the world to appreciate the innocence and determination he witnessed in Marcus. There was something about the boy's spirit that reminded him of the young soldiers he had mentored overseas, that unwavering belief that anything was possible. "You know quite a bit about military history for someone your age," Sergeant Mitchell observed, crouching down to Marcus's eye level. "Have you been studying long?" Marcus's face lit up as he began explaining his extensive collection of military books and documentaries. He knew about famous battles, different regiments, and even the specific duties of various guards. His passion was evident in every word he spoke. "I want to be a soldier someday," Marcus declared, with the confidence only a child could possess. "I know I can't walk, but I still want to serve my country somehow." Sergeant Mitchell felt something stir in his chest. a mixture of admiration and determination. He had worked with wounded veterans who had lost limbs in combat, men who had to relearn everything about their bodies and their capabilities. He understood that strength came in many forms, and this young boy possessed a strength of spirit that many grown men lacked. As the official tour concluded, Mrs. Hartwell announced that they would be moving to the courtyard for the highlight of the visit, watching the changing of the guard ceremony up close. Marcus was positioned in a special viewing area where he would have an unobstructed view of the entire proceedings. The ceremony began with the sound of military drums echoing off the ancient stones. Marcus watched in complete fascination as the guards marched in perfect formation, their movements precise and coordinated. The pageantry was everything he had imagined, and more. The bright red uniforms, the gleaming brass instruments, the serious expressions of duty and honor. But as the ceremony progressed, Marcus began to feel a familiar ache in his heart. Watching these strong, capable men march with such pride and purpose reminded him of everything he felt he could never achieve. For a moment, the magic of the day dimmed as reality settled back in. Sergeant Mitchell, who had been watching Marcus throughout the ceremony, noticed the subtle change in the boy's expression. He had seen that look before, the moment when dreams collided with perceived limitations. It was a look he had worn himself after his first serious injury overseas, when doctors told him he might never return to active duty. After the ceremony ended, as other visitors began to disperse, Sergeant Mitchell approached the Williams family. "Mrs. Williams," he said to Marcus's mother, "I was wondering if I might have a word with you and your husband about Marcus." Sarah and David exchanged glances, uncertain what this might mean. They stepped aside while Marcus remained in his wheelchair, still staring at the spot where the guards had been marching moments before. "Your son has something special," Sergeant Mitchell began, choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking about what he said earlier, about wanting to serve his country. I'd like to propose something, if you're willing to listen." The parents nodded, curious about where this conversation might lead. "I've worked with many wounded warriors over the years," the sergeant continued. "Men who thought their service was over because of injuries or disabilities. But I've learned that service isn't just about physical capability. It's about heart, determination, and the willingness to never give up. Your son has all of those qualities in abundance." He paused, looking back at Marcus, who was now examining the intricate details of a nearby monument. "I'd like to invite Marcus back tomorrow, if possible, not as a visitor, but as an honorary recruit. I want to show him that there are many ways to serve, many ways to stand tall, even when the world tells you it's impossible." Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give Marcus a chance to experience what it really means to be a soldier," Sergeant Mitchell replied. "Not just the ceremony and pageantry, but the training, the discipline, the camaraderie. I want to show him that his wheelchair doesn't define his limitations, his spirit does." David stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "That's incredibly generous of you, Sergeant, but I'm not sure I understand what you mean." Sergeant Mitchell smiled, a plan already forming in his mind. "I mean, I want to give Marcus a chance to discover that standing tall has nothing to do with your legs and everything to do with your courage. Will you trust me with your son for a day?" As the family prepared to leave the palace that evening, Marcus's mind was filled with images of marching soldiers and dreams of purpose. He had no idea that his return visit would change not only his own life, but touch the hearts of everyone who witnessed what was about to unfold. The seeds of something extraordinary had been planted, and tomorrow would bring the first signs of their remarkable growth. The next morning arrived with a crisp October chill that made Marcus pull his jacket tighter as his family returned to Buckingham Palace. He had barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities and questions about what Sergeant Mitchell had planned. His parents were equally curious and nervous, having spent the evening discussing whether they should allow their son to participate in whatever unconventional program the sergeant had in mind. Sergeant Mitchell met them at a side entrance, dressed in his full ceremonial uniform. His presence was commanding yet warm, and Marcus immediately felt the same sense of respect and admiration he had experienced the day before. This time, however, there was something different in the sergeant's manner, a sense of purpose and determination that suggested today would be unlike any other day in Marcus's young life. "Good morning, recruit," Sergeant Mitchell said with a formal salute, causing Marcus's eyes to widen with surprise and delight. "Are you ready to begin your training?" Marcus straightened in his wheelchair as best he could and attempted to return the salute, his small hand trembling with excitement. "Yes, sir!" The sergeant led them to a private training area behind the main palace grounds, where several other guards were waiting. Marcus recognized a few faces from the previous day, but others were new. What struck him immediately was that none of them seemed surprised by his presence. They had clearly been briefed and were prepared for what was about to happen. "Gentlemen," Sergeant Mitchell announced to his colleagues, "I'd like you to meet honorary recruit Marcus Williams. He's here to learn what it truly means to serve." The guards responded with a crisp, "Good morning, sir," directed at Marcus, who felt his chest swell with pride. For the first time in his life, he was being treated not as a disabled child to be pitied, but as an equal worthy of respect. Sergeant Mitchell had spent considerable time the previous evening planning this day. He had consulted with military physicians, physical therapists, and even contacted several veterans organizations to understand how to create a meaningful training experience that would be both safe and transformative for Marcus. His goal wasn't to cure the boy's paralysis, but to help him discover strengths he never knew he possessed. The first exercise involved military history and strategy. Marcus was wheeled up to a large table covered with maps and tactical scenarios. The guards took turns explaining different military operations, asking for Marcus's input on strategy and decision-making. His extensive knowledge impressed everyone present, and his strategic thinking proved remarkably sophisticated for his age. "Excellent analysis, recruit," said Corporal Davies, a veteran of peacekeeping missions. "Your understanding of terrain advantage shows real military aptitude." Marcus beamed with pride. For once, his physical limitations were irrelevant. Here, his mind was the weapon, and it was proving to be quite formidable. The next phase involved weapons training, adapted specifically for Marcus's situation. Using replica weapons that were lighter and easier to handle, the guards taught him proper handling techniques, safety protocols, and basic marksmanship principles. Though he couldn't stand to aim in the traditional manner, they showed him alternative positions and techniques that accommodated his wheelchair. "A true soldier adapts to any situation," Sergeant Mitchell explained as he helped Marcus adjust his grip on the training rifle. "The weapon doesn't make the soldier. The soldier's mind and determination make the weapon effective." Marcus's concentration was intense as he learned to compensate for his position, calculating angles and adjustments with mathematical precision. When he successfully hit his first target, the guards erupted in genuine cheers and applause. His parents watched from a nearby bench, tears streaming down their faces as they witnessed their son experiencing something they had never thought possible. As the morning progressed, Marcus participated in communications training, learning military radio protocols and Morse code. His quick mind absorbed the information rapidly, and soon he was relaying messages between different groups of guards with professional efficiency. During the lunch break, Sergeant Mitchell sat with Marcus while his parents spoke with Mrs. Hartwell about the morning's activities. The sergeant had been observing the boy carefully, noting not just his abilities, but the transformation in his demeanor and confidence. "How are you feeling, Marcus?" the sergeant asked, genuinely curious about the boy's experience. "I feel different," Marcus replied, struggling to find the right words. "Like I'm actually good at something important. Like maybe I could really help people someday." Sergeant Mitchell nodded understandingly. You know, some of the best soldiers I've known weren't the strongest or fastest. They were the ones who could think clearly under pressure, who could adapt to any situation, who never gave up no matter how difficult things became. You've shown all of those qualities today." Marcus looked down at his hands, then back up at the sergeant. "But I still can't walk. I can't march with the other soldiers." "Let me tell you something about a friend of mine," Sergeant Mitchell said, settling back in his chair. "His name is Colonel Thompson. He lost both his legs in an explosion while serving overseas. The doctors told him his military career was over, but he refused to accept that. He retrained, learned new skills, and now he's one of the most effective intelligence officers in the British Army. He serves his country every single day, and he does it from a wheelchair just like yours." Marcus's eyes grew wide with interest. "Really? He's still a soldier?" "Not just a soldier. He's a leader. He commands respect from everyone who works with him because they know his commitment and his capability. His wheelchair doesn't limit him. It's just the vehicle he uses to get where he needs to go." This conversation planted a seed that would grow throughout the rest of the day. Marcus began to see his wheelchair not as a symbol of limitation, but as simply another piece of equipment, no different from a soldier's pack or rifle. The afternoon training focused on teamwork and leadership exercises. The guards divided into small teams, with Marcus assigned as a team leader for one group. His task was to coordinate his team through a series of tactical challenges that required communication, strategy, and cooperation. Watching Marcus take command was remarkable. His natural intelligence combined with the confidence he had gained throughout the day transformed him into an effective leader. He issued clear instructions, adapted quickly when plans needed to change, and supported his team members when they struggled with their tasks. "Outstanding leadership, recruit," Sergeant Mitchell observed as Marcus successfully guided his team through a particularly complex scenario. "Your ability to see the bigger picture while managing individual team members shows real command potential." The final exercise of the day was the most ambitious. Sergeant Mitchell had arranged for Marcus to participate in a modified version of the changing of the guard ceremony. While he couldn't march with the other guards, he would serve as the ceremonial commander, calling out orders and coordinating the movements of the entire unit. As the afternoon sun began to cast long shadows across the courtyard, Marcus took his position at the front of the formation. His wheelchair had been decorated with ceremonial elements that made it look official and dignified. His parents and Mrs. Hartwell watched from the same viewing area where they had stood the day before, but now the perspective was entirely different. "Guards! Attention!" Marcus called out in his strongest voice. The soldiers snapped to perfect position, responding to his command with the same precision they would show any officer. As Marcus continued to call out the ceremonial commands, something extraordinary began to happen. His voice grew stronger and more confident with each order. His posture straightened in his wheelchair, and his entire bearing transformed. He wasn't a disabled child pretending to be a soldier. He was a leader, commanding respect through his competence and determination. The ceremony proceeded flawlessly, with Marcus demonstrating perfect timing and clear communication throughout. When it concluded, the guards saluted him with genuine respect and admiration. The applause from the small audience of palace staff who had gathered to watch was heartfelt and enthusiastic. But the most meaningful moment came when Sergeant Mitchell approached Marcus after the ceremony. Instead of the casual interaction they had shared throughout the day, the sergeant came to attention and delivered a formal salute. "It has been an honor serving with you today, recruit," he said with military formality. "Your dedication, intelligence, and leadership have exemplified the finest traditions of military service." Marcus returned the salute with pride, his young face glowing with accomplishment. For the first time in his life, he truly understood that his worth wasn't measured by what his body could or couldn't do, but by the strength of his character and the determination of his spirit. As the day concluded, Marcus had no idea that the most extraordinary part of his journey was yet to come. Tomorrow would bring challenges and discoveries that would test everything he had learned and push him toward a moment that would change his life forever. The third day of Marcus's extraordinary experience began differently than the previous two. Instead of meeting at the palace, Sergeant Mitchell had arranged to pick up the Williams family at their hotel and take them to a special military rehabilitation center just outside London. Marcus was puzzled by this change in plans, but his trust in the sergeant had grown so strong that he didn't question the decision. During the car ride, Sergeant Mitchell explained that he wanted Marcus to meet some very special people who had become part of his extended military family. "These are soldiers who have faced challenges similar to yours," he said carefully. "But they've discovered something remarkable about the power of determination and the support of people who believe in you." The rehabilitation center was a modern facility with expansive grounds and state-of-the-art equipment. As they entered, Marcus noticed several people in wheelchairs, others with prosthetic limbs, and some using various mobility aids. But what struck him most was the atmosphere. Instead of sadness or resignation, the place hummed with energy, determination, and hope. They were greeted by Dr. Sarah Patterson, a former military physician who now specialized in adaptive rehabilitation. She was a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and the kind of smile that immediately put people at ease. She had worked with hundreds of wounded veterans and had developed innovative approaches to helping people overcome physical limitations. "Marcus," she said warmly, "Sergeant Mitchell has told me quite a bit about you. I understand you've been learning about military service over the past couple of days." Marcus nodded enthusiastically, his confidence now much stronger than it had been just 3 days ago. "Yes, ma'am. I learned about strategy and weapons and leadership. Sergeant Mitchell says I have potential." Dr. Patterson smiled at the sergeant, recognizing the transformation that was clearly taking place. "Well, today I'd like you to meet some people who might inspire you even further." The first person they encountered was Captain Michael Rodriguez, a former infantry soldier who had lost his right leg in an explosion while serving in Syria. He was now using an advanced prosthetic limb and was in the middle of a training session that involved complex obstacle courses and endurance challenges. "Good morning, recruit," Captain Rodriguez called out when he saw Marcus, giving him the same respectful salute that had become familiar over the past few days. "I hear you're learning about service and dedication." Marcus watched in amazement as the captain demonstrated his abilities, moving through challenging exercises with strength and grace. The prosthetic leg was clearly advanced technology, but what impressed Marcus most was the captain's attitude. He approached each challenge with determination and even humor. "How do you do it?" Marcus asked during a break in the training. "How do you stay so positive when everything is so hard?" Captain Rodriguez sat down next to Marcus's wheelchair, his expression thoughtful. "You know, Marcus, when I first lost my leg, I thought my life was over. I couldn't imagine how I would ever be useful again, how I could continue to serve or even just live normally. But then I realized something important. My leg wasn't what made me a soldier. My mind, my heart, my commitment to helping others. Those were still intact." He gestured toward his prosthetic. "This is just a tool, like a rifle or a radio. It helps me do what I need to do, but it doesn't define who I am. Your wheelchair is the same thing. It's just a tool that helps you get where you need to go." This conversation continued as they toured more of the facility, meeting other veterans who had overcome various challenges. There was Lieutenant Sarah Chen, who had lost her sight but had retrained as a military intelligence analyst. There was Sergeant James Wilson, who had suffered a traumatic brain injury but had learned to adapt and was now working as a counselor for other wounded veterans. Each person Marcus met reinforced the same message, that physical limitations didn't have to mean the end of dreams or the abandonment of purpose. They had all found ways to continue serving, to contribute meaningfully to their communities, and to live lives filled with accomplishment and pride. But the most significant moment of the day came when Dr. Patterson introduced Marcus to a piece of equipment he had never seen before. An advanced exoskeleton device designed to help people with spinal cord injuries experience supported movement. "This is still experimental," Dr. Patterson explained, "but it's showing remarkable results in helping people with conditions similar to yours experience assisted mobility. The device supports your legs and provides the mechanical assistance needed for movement, while your brain still controls the process." Marcus stared at the device with fascination and growing excitement. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. Lightweight metal supports that attached to legs and waist, connected to a small computer pack that would rest on his back. "Would you like to try it?" Dr. Patterson asked gently. "It's completely safe, and we have full medical supervision. But I want you to understand that this isn't a cure. It's assistive technology that might give you a different kind of mobility experience." Marcus looked at his parents, his eyes filled with hope and possibility. Sarah and David had been watching their son's transformation over the past 3 days with amazement and growing optimism. They had seen him develop confidence, discover abilities they never knew he possessed, and begin to envision a future filled with purpose rather than limitations. "What do you think, Marcus?" his father asked softly. "Do you want to try?" Marcus's response was immediate and certain. "Yes, sir. I want to try." The process of fitting Marcus into the exoskeleton took nearly an hour. Dr. Patterson and her team worked carefully, adjusting every component to ensure proper fit and safety. They explained each step of the process, helping Marcus understand how the device worked and what he could expect. Sergeant Mitchell stayed close throughout the fitting process, offering encouragement and moral support. He had researched this possibility extensively over the past 2 days, working with Dr. Patterson to determine whether Marcus might be a good candidate for this type of assistive technology. When the fitting was complete, Marcus found himself standing upright for the first time in his life. The sensation was indescribable. Instead of looking up at the world, he was now at eye level with the adults around him. The exoskeleton provided the support his legs couldn't, while sensors detected his intentions and translated them into movement commands. "How does it feel?" Dr. Patterson asked, monitoring the device's readings carefully. "Incredible," Marcus whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "I'm standing. I'm really standing." The first few minutes involved simple exercises, shifting weight from one foot to the other, learning to balance with the device's assistance, and understanding how his movements translated into mechanical responses. Marcus was a quick learner, his natural intelligence helping him adapt rapidly to this new form of mobility. Then came the moment that would be remembered by everyone present for the rest of their lives. "Marcus," Sergeant Mitchell said quietly, "would you like to try taking a step?" With Dr. Patterson's guidance and the full support team monitoring every aspect of the device's performance, Marcus concentrated on lifting his right foot. The exoskeleton responded to the signals from his brain, providing the mechanical assistance needed to raise his leg and move it forward. His first step was small and tentative, but it was unmistakably a step. The room fell silent as everyone watched this young boy who had never walked before take his first supported step forward. "Again," Dr. Patterson encouraged softly. "Nice and slow. Concentrate on what you want your leg to do." Marcus took a second step, then a third. With each movement, his confidence grew and his coordination improved. He was walking, not independently and not without significant technological assistance, but he was walking. The emotional impact on his parents was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah began crying openly, her hands covering her mouth as she watched her son accomplish something they had been told would never be possible. David stood frozen, hardly daring to believe what he was witnessing. Sergeant Mitchell felt his own eyes filling with tears as he watched Marcus take step after careful step across the training room. This wasn't just about technology or medical advancement. It was about the power of hope, determination, and the refusal to accept limitations. Marcus managed to walk nearly 20 feet before the team decided it was time for a break. As Dr. Patterson helped him back into his wheelchair, his face was radiant with joy and accomplishment. "Did you see that?" he asked everyone within hearing. "Did you see me walking? I actually walked." The celebration that followed was spontaneous and heartfelt. Veterans who had been working on their own rehabilitation exercises gathered around to congratulate Marcus on his achievement. For many of them, watching this young boy overcome such a significant challenge renewed their own sense of possibility and hope. Captain Rodriguez approached Marcus with a formal salute. "Outstanding work, soldier. That was one of the most impressive displays of courage and determination I've ever witnessed." Dr. Patterson explained that while this was just a first experience with the technology, Marcus appeared to be an excellent candidate for continued training with exoskeleton assistance. The device was becoming more advanced and accessible, and there was genuine possibility that he could continue to work with this type of assistive mobility in the future. As the day concluded, Sergeant Mitchell gathered Marcus and his family for a final ceremony. In the presence of the veterans and staff at the rehabilitation center, he presented Marcus with an honorary certificate recognizing his service as a junior military advisor, a position that would allow him to return and work with other young people facing similar challenges. "Marcus Williams," Sergeant Mitchell announced formally, "you have demonstrated the finest qualities of military service: courage in the face of adversity, determination to overcome obstacles, and commitment to helping others achieve their potential. It has been my honor to serve alongside you." The ceremony concluded with Marcus leading the group in a final salute, standing tall in his exoskeleton one more time before transitioning back to his wheelchair for the journey home. As the Williams family prepared to return to Yorkshire, Marcus was already making plans for his next visit to London. He talked excitedly about the friends he had made, the skills he had learned, and the possibilities that now seemed within reach. The 3-day experience had transformed not just Marcus, but his entire family's understanding of what was possible. They had witnessed firsthand that limitations existed mainly in the mind, and that with determination, support, and innovative thinking, even the most challenging obstacles could be overcome. Marcus returned home with more than just memories of his adventure. He carried with him a new sense of identity, confidence in his abilities, and a clear vision of how he wanted to contribute to the world. His collection of toy soldiers took on new meaning. They were no longer reminders of what he couldn't do, but symbols of the service and courage he hoped to demonstrate in his own life. The story of the Royal Guard who saw potential where others saw limitation, and the young boy who discovered that standing tall had nothing to do with the strength of his legs, would become an inspiration to countless others facing their own challenges. It was a reminder that extraordinary things happen when someone believes in us enough to help us believe in ourselves.